Okay. Call the meeting in order at 9:03 a.m. Central Time. Any absences? The only one that is not here or logged on is Commissioner Hargrave. We're gonna get him minutes for Zoom, and then if not, we'll come back to this. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. I know this is kind of unusual. Signed up for this. You didn't expect it to be 2 days, but I think these workshops are very important. I think we've learned a lot. I think it's moved the agency forward. I'm really excited about the one today. There's a lot of all talk. There's a lot of, we should do this, we should do that. How can we do this? How can we do that? A lot of great ideas, and this might be where we kind of open that can of worms and start getting some of the ideas done. We're going to have a lot of ideas talked about today, a lot of initiatives, a lot of really great things we can accomplish. I think like everything, we need to find the low-hanging fruit that we can do immediately, get it done, and start taking care of these like one bite at a time. So we're going to start with Christine. She's going to talk to us about some communications and stuff like that. And I'm going to turn it over to you. So all yours.
I'm concerned, can the people on the Zoom call hear me if I sit back here?
Can y'all hear Christine?
Yeah, otherwise I'll grab a mic.
Yeah, let's grab a mic just to be sure.
I'm ready to fix that.
Good morning, Commissioner Hargrave.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, great. All right, good morning, everyone. How's everyone this morning? Good? Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Give me one second. All right, good morning. My name is Christine Anderson. I am the Public Affairs and Communications Manager for the Texas Real Estate Commission. I've worked here at the Commission. Just a little bit about myself, because I don't know if everyone knows me very well. I worked at the Commission for about 10 years, and before that, I used to work with the Texas Association of Realtors and retreat packs, so you know that as well. So I worked with realtors and real estate agents for a very long time, and I'm really excited to be here today to present with you and hopefully give you any information you might need. So getting started, what we're going to talk about today. Okay, good. First of all, what do I do? What do we do with the commission? What do we do? I'm going to show you some metrics from our current system, and then I'm also going to tell you a little bit about what I believe that means, and then what is coming next. So currently, TREC uses Facebook, Twitter, GovDelivery, YouTube, and the TREC website to communicate externally general information of licensed sellers. This means things like agency closures, licensure updates, rule updates, meeting updates, those types of things. Other types of messages, and I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that I was speaking to the first. The other type of communication we have is licensing and education and enforcement divisions use separate systems for communications. These letters are managed through our database and include renewal reminders, application updates, and messages related to complaints. So today we're just going to be speaking to them first, the general notices and communications and updates about things. Oh, and I want to remind you that throughout this presentation, if I'm going too fast or if you have any questions, please by all means feel free to ask. So currently, here are the outlets we use: Facebook, Twitter, the Commission website, YouTube, and GovDelivery. And I'm just seeing that there's some delay on this, so let me know what I'm going to next. First of all, Facebook. The total page followers we have on Facebook is 29,375. The total page likes is 12,725. 71% of the followers are women and 29% men. and 44% of those followers are between ages of 35 and 54. I just got a notice saying that I'm kicked out of the meeting. Can everyone still hear me? Okay. Second, next up we use Twitter. The total followers for Twitter is 1,076. Impressions over 90 days, and that means the amount of time that our tweets are seen in somebody's feed. So that the algorithms behind this determine whether or not Scott has been interested in tweets from the commission and prioritize those, even if he's following them. So it's going to prioritize our messaging based on interaction with the agency. It's pretty complicated, but that is basically how they're determining impressions if we're showing up in a feed. That's 15,700 times. So of our followers, they're seen some way, shape, or form, whether it's retweeted or shared or even naturally in your Twitter feed. Okay? The top 20 topics were agency closures, licensure updates, rules, and contract information. The TREC website. I'm sure some of you know, we updated our website about 5 or 6 years ago, I can't remember the exact date, and launched its current version of the website. We use something called Google Analytics behind our website. Our website is built on a content management system called Drupal. That is how we manage all the content in the website. But behind that website, we also use a tool that's super powerful called Google Analytics. And that's where I get this information. The total users for the year is 3.12 million. The number of sessions per user, meaning the user comes back 2.3 times per year. Yes, go ahead.
Could you email your presentation to us?
Absolutely, no problem. I'm happy to do that. Sure. The top pages for our website, license holder search, so that's looking up information about license holders, online services, and become a sales agent and contracts. And Google Analytics is a really powerful tool. You can see how people access the website, from what platform, from what type of device, all of that. So if you have questions about that throughout your discussion today, I'm happy to go over that information for you.
Christine, that 3.12, that's unique users?
Yes. Okay, moving on to YouTube. The total subscribers range is 1,000, about 1,000 subscribers. Total views is 90,563. That's not for the year, that is total views for our videos. But the top videos are hydrostatic testing, IABS posting and delivery, messaging, and advertising. Just a quick note that hydrostatic testing video is linked within some of the education materials. So I believe that the reason that that is so high is when they're teaching the class, they're clicking on the YouTube video and showing it to the class, which is great. It's showing us that they're showing the video, but that is probably why it's the #1 video. Okay, moving on to gut delivery. So a quick overview of what gut delivery is the tool that our agency pays for to deliver email messages to our license holders. In the past, we would use general email, and we would send out to all of our license holders a message, and we had no idea if it was delivered, and sometimes we put on what they call a blacklist, where we would be considered spam. So this tool is what we use to circumvent those issues. It ensures deliverable. The message was delivered, excuse me, and it ensures that it can show us if the message was opened and how many times it was opened, engagement in the email, and it allows us to make sure that we're sending messages without being dubbed spam. We actually send quite a few messages, as you can see here. So a little overview of gut delivery. Total email subscribers is 439,918. Percent growth from last year is 20%. Oh, I'm sorry, it has changed by my screen. Not sure if that's. I'm so sorry. Let's see if I can get it to go through.
Everyone's frozen.
Okay. It's not changing on the screen. I'm so sorry. Thank you for pointing that out to me.
While we're working on that, we're gonna talk later about doing some little videos and stuff like that. If hydrostatic testing is getting that many hits, whether it's linked to legal and legal two, we can link some of these other videos to legal and legal two during update. Because there's nothing more exciting than hydrostatic testing on videos. So I think when we do an update for legal and legal two, let's link some of these videos we're gonna talk about later.
And YouTube is getting
There is
subscribers and those views, so it's showing that videos are working.
Use your
Yeah.
mics.
Oh, I am gonna say that, if you guys can turn your mics on, and I mean, I'm not using something else, but, and lean in, because we did have some people
one are you on?
here as well yesterday.
Okay.
And I am defying that as I say this to you, but I think that'd be helpful to lean in.
And I will be going over some of our future plans and discussion and opportunities for growth in these channels after. I wanted to go over a general overview of where we currently stand and what's planned. Sorry, I wasn't clear with that at the beginning.
No, great numbers.
Okay, if I may add to your question about linking into legal update 1 and 2, my phone.
Sorry. Charles Porter is working with the Real Estate Center to create a short 5-minute or so video to introduce the mineral rights and ad valorem taxes, and that will be linked into the materials.
Okay, looks like you guys are showing it right now. Sorry about that. Okay, total email subscribers, like I said, is 439,918. But a lot of numbers, my mouth is getting tired. I apologize. And growth from last year is 20% or almost 21%. That means that we've added subscribers year over year at a rate of 28%. The total emails sent last year, which I had to double check because I couldn't believe that it was this many, was 6,024,089 emails. The most popular audiences, meaning the people that we send the most messages to, is current real estate license holders and the TREC newsletter. Both of those are similar audiences, actually. The TREC newsletter goes out to all of our current real estate license holders, and then we also send out additional messages to current real estate license holders. So the TREC newsletter can also be signed up by the public. So anyone from the public can sign up for the TREC newsletter in addition to our current license holders. Does anyone have any questions about gov delivery? I know it's a little less familiar.
Metrics on that, like the open rate, bounce rate, all that.
Yes, and I have all of the reports pulled up. So in your discussion later, if you want that information, I'm happy to provide it as we go through.
There are additional costs associated with it.
Yes, gov delivery is a paid service. I believe the contract price, Steve, do you know off the top of your head? Not to put you in. Okay, I could be wrong. I don't want to misspeak.
And as you get more subscribers, would that go up?
No, and that's one of the reasons we use gov delivery. And it's something like 98% of all emails sent from government agencies are sent through this tool called gov delivery. It's owned by a parent company called Granicus that does management of a lot of different types of products for government agencies. But they are kind of the resource for us for government messaging because we have a large amount of audience and we don't want to pay for subscribers, right? So if you use something like survey or contact monkey or not survey monkey, but contact, excuse me, you pay for the subscribers. So the bigger your list gets, the more you have to pay. And so that's actually one of the reasons we use gov delivery is because we can have an unlimited amount of audience and pay a flat fee. So did that answer?
Yes, have you thought about Instagram?
Yeah, and that's something that I was going to get into later in the presentation. No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. I'm happy to address it. So what does this mean?
Jan Miller has a question.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Jan.
Oh, Commissioner Miller, you're on mute.
I was muted. Will you repeat the questions of the people that aren't speaking? Because like I could tell it was Leslie, I think. but I couldn't hear her. Her question is muted. Michael, I could hear a little better.
Okay, so the commissioner that, Michael asked if we pay for the subscribers. So the more subscribers we have, do we pay a larger cost for Go Delivery? And the answer is no. It's the reason we use this tool is because we can have an amount of subscribers and not affect the baseline cost for the agency. Okay, moving forward, what does this mean? So based on the growth across all of our platforms, it means that the license holders are engaged. There's growth and there's engagement across all of the current platforms we use. We're actually beating most of the normal metrics for engagement, metric basic understanding of how people engage in the baseline of what people should be engaging with. I'm sorry, I'm so tongue-tied. The consistent communications across different mediums. So currently, we use all of these different mediums to communicate the same message, meaning that we reach a wide range of license holders in their preferred platform. So some of our license holders really like that old school, newsletter format with all of the content in a written format. Some of our license holders really like YouTube. Some of them like the quick brief Facebook post and then being able to open it. And it means that by sending the same message across all of these platforms, we're reaching people in the medium that they want to be communicated by. Does that make sense? Okay.
Christine, can I ask a question?
I have another question. Of the $6 million sent emails, can you tell how many of those emails were opened?
Yes.
And even down to the articles, can you tell that?
So we can tell if the link within the email has been clicked on. So in the newsletter, we have a brief version of the article and then a read more. Typically, we can tell if that read more has been clicked on. We can tell which articles are typically the most popular within the newsletter. Consistently, by far and away, the most clicked on thing within the newsletter is the enforcement action. It is one of the reasons that it is at the bottom of the newsletter in hopes that people will scan through the rest of the headlines before they get to it. But it is by far and away the most clicked on thing. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, ma'am.
And yes, I can tell, and I can, while you guys are talking, if that's something you're interested in, I can try to find the average open rates for all of the messages of those 6 million.
Just a quick question. Is there ever some sort of messaging to update your email, update your contact information? Because I notice sometimes maybe like when they renew their license, is it still your email, something like that?
Right, and yes, the short answer is yes, that is communicated, but typically it's communicated through, in addition to, hey, keep your email up to date, and on the website we say that multiple places. In the messaging that comes from an education and licensing, as well as enforcement, I believe, they remind them to keep their email address up to date to ensure that they get communications from the agency. One of the problems that we did have, or still do, is sometimes people create an online services account with an email address that they won't have access to 2 years, and then they have a hard time accessing it. So we try to communicate that they need to make sure they're using, their personal email address instead of maybe their government one.
Can they be prompted when they log in to change sponsors or to whatever they do? Can they be prompted to put in their email address instead of just hoping, or when they renew their license?
Great idea.
I'm sorry, Commissioner?
I said that was a great idea.
I believe, are they, in online services, when they go to log in or create a new transaction, let's say they want to change their sponsor, are they ever asked to update their email address?
Yes, they're always asked to update the email address, and even when they call into our office, it's one of our checkpoints to make sure that their telephone number, all their contact information is correct.
So for those on the phone, Robert Hood just said, yes, they are asked, when they create a new transaction or do anything online, they are asked to update their email record with us. And then as one of those checkpoints team, they also ensure that that is updated as well.
When you renew your license, you have to verify it.
Yes.
Address, phone numbers, email.
Yes.
The rest of it's asked, but that's the one thing you have to verify when you renew, and that's every 2 years.
Mhm.
And then that one case we had yesterday too, they said we didn't have the right email address.
So, does anyone else have, I don't need to move you forward, want to? Okay. So what comes next? We would like to continue to expand the use of social media. These platforms give the agency an easy and free outlet to access many wider users. We'd like to expand the use of video to reach new audiences on these platforms. The algorithms are currently designed that posts with photos are engaged with more. And then even more so, posts with videos are engaged with more, meaning that they show up in people's feed more. So we'd like to continue to expand on that, if possible, when possible. There is a lot of extra effort in creating video, and so we need feedback from you all on whether or not that's something that you're interested in doing. But that is something that we're looking into doing. And I've identified some easy to use resources for the agency to create video that may be helpful for our license holders. And then update the emails and newsletters to engage our readers. We are currently working with our email provider to refresh the template and improve engagement, improving newsletter templates to be more engaging and brief. Meaning, I've already met with, based on, I had the pleasure of attending the Work Responsibility Working Group about a month ago. And in that meeting, some of the feedback I got was maybe we need to update the newsletter format and template to be a little bit more engaging. So I have, as part of our contract with Portability, which is the service that designs our template, we get design services as part of the contract yearly. So I went ahead and engaged with them and working with them on redesigning the look and feel of both the regular email template as well as the newsletter template to hopefully increase engagement. And then what comes next is up to you. What do you want to see? What do you want to know? Do you want more information? Do you regular reports or weekly emails? I know Tommy provides a weekly email that, a customer service update or a monthly customer service update that we make more work for you. And then, or do you want like a quarterly report on this, or is going to happen here? But I really want to thank you all for having me here today. I appreciate the time, and I'm here. I have all sorts of much more complicated data and information for you. I just wanted to give you a really high-end overview of where we currently stand with the platforms we have. One of the questions I was asked is, are we planning on using Instagram and then also maybe TikTok? I will say that when we started social media, those platforms, TikTok didn't even exist, but Instagram's user agreements did not have any information for government entities. The user agreements did not have things like open records and stuff addressed in their user agreement. I would have to go in and look, and I'm sure they have since updated that to ensure that that we're in compliance with our requirements. And Instagram at the time also, years ago, was a much smaller platform, and when we were trying to do a cost benefit on our time invested, the largest audiences we could reach was via Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. So that's why we use those. But I'm completely open to suggestions for additional.
Well, thank you for that answer. Well, technology, we need it. Well, I'm in agreement with that, but what we would like to know is, as you increase the cost of technology and increase the platform, how could we, do you have any better tools to see if it's going to increase our applications that's sent in?
Well, I might be so bold to say, I don't know if our end goal, and maybe you guys can give me insight, is to increase application. I think we approach current communication to be increasing education on our standards, expectations, changes and requirements, things like that. But as far as like increasing our audience, that's not usually our goal, to find new people to apply for a license. Although if that's something that you would like me to, like the agency to address, that's something that we can consider. But that's currently.
The answer simple would be yes. As costs go up, the income must go up. So it's not a direct correlation to more income. I think we really need to take a hard look at some of the.
And that's just not a metric we're currently tracking, but I can contend. Right, and one of the great
Social media, unless they're doing paid targeted advertising, it's this, right?
So one of the great things about the current social media platforms we use is that they're all free. They're all free for access.
That's what I'm asking.
Right, so, and we do not, and I don't believe we can pay for advertising on those platforms, although I'm not sure about that.
I think most of our costs related to communications are related to like the cost of delivery and subscribing to a few services, but it's fairly minimal. And our mission on it is really to help protect the consumer by further educating the license holder. So it's not a revenue generator, but I don't know that, I would be cautious about going that direction because, you know, we're an enforcement and a regulatory agency. We receive fees that we use to sustain ourselves in order to fulfill our mission. But I think our main goal of communications is for purposes of consumer protection. Commissioner Warner, we're still having a hard time hearing you. If you can just like kiss your microphone and speak loud.
Christine, do you know how we as TREC compare to other agencies on social media?
Yes, actually, that's a great question. And when I was running them through with our staff beforehand, that was the same question they asked. So I am going to bring up the reports as we're talking. Facebook gives us insight into comparables to other agencies that we would consider ourselves to be similar to. And currently, for example, Texas Realtors, which is a trade association, but not a licensing entity, but a similar audience. They have 39,000 total page likes. Again, we have 12,000. The Real Estate Center, though, has 6,000, and we have 12,000. So the Texas Board of Professional Engineers has 4,000. And this is just Facebook, by the way. And the Texas State Board of Public Accountancy has 1,700 likes. So we're actually at the higher end of most of that.
State government is very slow to jump onto things like social media, and we are historically very bad at it. So strangely, we are kind of in many ways ahead of the game for state agencies, but certainly not in the world.
Yeah, we recognize that our audience, in particular with real estate agents and brokers and all of our license holders, they're fairly well engaged in social media. It's a platform that everyone's pretty familiar with communicating on. So it's something that we prioritized years ago, kind of entering into that pool. And I think it's paid off. Clearly, we can better outreach to all of those license holders that maybe don't see the newsletter every time, but they would be a Facebook post across their feed.
So one of the, and I'm not really sure how to couch this, but one of the things I'd like to see us do is find a way to communicate with licensees about the fact that a lot of the compliance that needs to happen, that's not happening for the benefit of the consumer, needs to be, there's a self-policing element that, certainly the trade association struggled with the code of ethics and all that. And I think, TREC as well, you hear comments like, realtors all the time say, this was the experience from hell on the other side of this thing, but I just want to get it closed. I just want to get it behind me. I don't want a problem with the other, realtor and all this kind of stuff. And sadly, that just continues the process. And I do think that, since, the new website and the fact that the public can find the process, that I would imagine we've seen, any more public, complaints over the last few years than maybe even before, when it was a paper process, maybe for a payment or whatever. But, somehow we need to encourage licensees to, participate at that level. Again, I know as a realtor association and others too, but I think cleaning up for the benefit of the consumer is going to, is really something we need to focus on. And I would just say that, sadly, being out there in it every day, while our funding mechanism works on the license county association, whatnot, having more wrong people isn't going to be a benefit to what we're trying to accomplish. Yeah, just
we're getting more than most orders for most. What are the audience through videos? Because you have the most followers and the most users. And I don't know the answer to this question. Can the commission post on their own internal website versus YouTube to bring more visitors to that? Instead of like, YouTube's great, but can you host the videos on the website as well?
Yes, typically when we have, for example, the Coffee for the Commission, I not only post it on YouTube, but then I repost that YouTube video and embed it on a page on the website and update the video on the website. So that, again, my approach is saying to reach people in the medium that they want. So not only is it on YouTube, but it's also on the TREC website, and then I also reshare that link on Facebook and Twitter, and also link it in the newsletter just to ensure that it's everywhere they possibly want it.
Is there a way you can, when they get on those other YouTube and Twitter, can you direct them toward our website?
Yeah, typically what I do, unless somebody goes to our YouTube page and find the YouTube page and watch the video there, most of our views come from I posted on the website or posted on social media and another platform, and they watch it through the link on the website or through the link on Facebook. So, for example, if I were to link the Coffee with the Commission video, what I would do is I would link to the YouTube video, I would link to the page that I created on the website with the YouTube video and then the links. But the link would be our URL from TREC, so that when I reshare it, people are coming to the TREC website to look at it, even though the video is being posted on YouTube. Does that make sense?
I want to go the opposite. I want to just search on YouTube and see the video, the signature of it.
Oh, well, all of our stuff is branded, so anytime somebody finds a YouTube video of ours, it is branded with the TREC website and our TREC website is linked on our profile and everything like that, and it says, who created the video. Yeah.
With these numbers, I think we have the delivery method. I really do. We had 439,000 subscribers. We have 200,000 total licensees. We have the delivery method. I'm just saying now we just need to keep doing the message. I mean, I'm impressed with these numbers. They surprised me. They really did. So kudos on the delivery. Now let's just get some more information as far as delivering.
And I look at how people are opening and what they're engaging with.
Awesome.
I will say that a lot of our sign up, so just in case you're unaware how we get those subscribers, we have provided on our homepage a slider that pops up on the homepage that says, subscribe for our email messages. And then so any public notice like the TREC newsletter or employment opportunities, they can subscribe for whatever topic they want to receive. In addition, then we also have a list of all our license holders and all of their emails so that we also communicate to them directly as well. So even if a license holder hasn't subscribed to us, to all the topics, we still ensure that they're at least getting the basic communications from our agency, like the newsletter. Does that make sense? So that a member of the public can subscribe to the newsletter, but then we also ensure that all of our license holders get the newsletter no matter what, whether they're subscribed.
Right. Do we want to go through the rest of the agenda and then come back to this when we're talking about future topics and dates? Is that okay?
I'm not trying to understand.
Okay. We want to follow up this with some ideas as far as videos and messaging. Do we want to do that when we get down to future workshop ideas and agenda ideas? Otherwise, I think if we go through the rest of the agenda, it'll give us more information to come back to Christine later.
Yes, for
Does that make
sure.
sense?
For sure. So we've got, I don't take my own advice. So what we've got coming up next, the thought was Christine's gonna provide an overview of what you have right now. And then we will definitely circle back and she's gonna be here to receive ideas and talk about it, when we get to, I mean, it all kind of tends to go together, but number 4 is really where you all will start, having that discussion and pushing out the ideas.
Okay. I'm gonna have to pull my slides.
No, that's okay. I mean, so that's Christine's presentation to really get us started on what you currently have, and what we're seeing in terms of usage and numbers. If anyone has any more questions for her right now, she's available. She'll be here the entire time.
Yeah, number as a reference, right?
Yeah, and to just receive ideas. The thought was, these are the questions that you all have, and to turn and look at some of the ideas that maybe you all have. In a second here, I'll do a little bit of a summary of the broker responsibility working group, and ESAP recommendations.
Yes,
Okay,
and that's one thing. If we go through everything, that'll give us more ideas for Christine.
yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Becker.
All right, you're on.
Okay. So I will be very brief, 1, because you heard from me a lot yesterday, and 2, because this is your workshop and your ideas. We just wanted to lay a little bit of foundation for what we have. The other work we've been doing in the background is building advisory committees on the topic of outreach as it pertains to their area of interest. So we've been staff's been working with ESAC and the broker responsibility working group to get ideas, some of them being similar to what you guys are talking about, Christine, like what, you as members of industry and members of the public, what do you see out there? What do you use? What do you think would work, right? And I think that you'll see some commonality in that. And then also what topics are relevant to you and important to you, because I think you've got, in terms of outreach, right, your advisory committees are members of the public and members of this industry, and they can carry messages outward. They can bring messages inward. They're out doing this daily. They know what they're seeing. They know things that, we don't know necessarily, we being staff, right? Because we're the regulatory agency, the licensing agency. We're not boots on the ground out there. So I will cover just some of the highlights from ESAC and BRWG, and then I will turn it over to you. There's a little bit of a conversation yesterday between Commissioner Lerner and Chair Kessner and myself, and I think a lot of the ideas from broker responsibility working group are going to come up in there too. So I will defer to Commissioner Lerner on a lot of that because she was the president. She's really the leading that charge with the broker responsibility working group. So general recommendations that we had that were common between broker responsibility and ESAC was to collect data to better understand what readers are interested in, which it sounds like we do, right? So we've heard a little bit about that, and I think what they were saying is to keep on track of that and know what the trends are. What are people interested in reading about? Enforcement actions are being the number one, right? It's the same in the legal industry. Everyone wants to know what did you get in trouble for, so I don't do it. So that's something that everybody was interested in. There was a lot of talk about educating consumers on what to expect from license holders, right? What should they see, what should they know when looking for a sales agent? What should they know about the role of the broker? What is that relationship? So doing some consumer outreach on that end so that you have a method of educating the consumer before they engage or as they engage. A lot of call for training videos for license holders, and the thought even those being short training videos, something like 2 minutes on a contract form update, right? Like why did the PID notice that we did yesterday, why is that out there? What's it for? Do I have to use it, right? A short video on that could be pushed out, things like that. I just made that up. But things like that, those are the areas that folks are talking about. They all agreed that TREC could probably get messaging out a little bit earlier and a little bit more often in terms of promotion of key events. Everybody seems really positive about Coffee with the Commission and really engaged with that, but I think wanting to, hear more about it, have it be promoted more, and that's, there's always that balance of we are pushing things out, but are people reading them? How do you get them to read them? But also, what could we do? What's being perceived as these are the areas where we could do more? And then there's thoughts on the newsletter, perhaps simplifying it, making it less legalese, something that jumps out a little bit more. And there's a lot of talk about community engagement, perhaps association engagement, of getting the TREC message out there. And that is a valuable resource that's out there, that's available. You have associations and you have license holders who are very engaged with those associations. How can TREC partner there to get this education, enforcement, consumer outreach message further out there? And there's talk about a little bit more regional access, getting out there and meeting places, which I think we all know has been really tough in the last year and a half. Yes, Commissioner Russell.
I believe on the Texas Realtors meeting, that you have a presence there with giving a.
Yes, we do. And I think that varies depending on the meetings, but if we're gonna have a presence there at this next one, as I understand it with the booth, and there are actually, I think you'll see some ideas on how to even expand that, right? How to get more people to come to our booth. So just things like that, and I think that's the conversation that these groups are having too. And I'll tell you, there's a real resource there because they're very excited about this. And I think could you have some participation at that level? Certainly, right? These are the leaders of your advisory committees. They, as you know, play a huge role in this agency. So I think their involvement here is also something that they are very interested in and a good resource. So I'll conclude because I think now comes the idea part. But there's a lot of talk about videos. There's a lot of talk about consumer education, public outreach assistance via the website. And you want to do that in a way that's appropriate as the licensing agency and that's delivering that right message of what can you do, who can you call, how can you help, how do you file a complaint, Some of that stuff exists certainly, but what can, what ideas do you all have that you think we can push out there and really get some movement on this topic? Because everyone that I speak to, this is the number one. How do we reach everybody? And with that, I will turn it over.
Okay, great information. Our group will hard to get it moving forward. And this is where we're gonna go with, initiatives for 2022. And I know 2022 sounds like it's a long ways off. And, like you said, myself and Commissioner Lerner and Vanessa got together here since talking about stuff. I think some of the stuff can be done before 22. Okay, I really do. But I'm gonna kind of open it up and, I will ask, you want to start off? I'm going to start off. Who wants to start off? What do you think we can get done? I got like 2 pages of stuff, okay? But, you want to go?
Maybe we can ask everybody what their priorities are, and then say, okay, how can we get this done in the most expedient?
Right. And that's what we kind of talked about yesterday. Throw stuff out, we'll take good notes, and then we might prioritize.
As we were sitting here talking, I was trying to go through how this would work, but we could also do like a competition between all the local associations of how do we get more followers. And so, in the local associations, I think I know on Facebook, you can do like questions, like to get membership of a page, and then you put your local association on there. And so we can have a count of where they're coming from and do some sort of competition of, oh, you got this amount of followers on the TREC page. And we have to figure out what that end result kind of reward would be, like maybe it's going to their city to have our TREC meeting or something like that, just to get that engagement. And I think that competition and just the presence.
Agreed.
May help.
Yeah. One of the things we kind of talked about here today, and this is why I really wanted Christine to be here. I think video is a wonderful thing. I really do. And there's so many things that I run into every day as a broker, as a licensee, and it's little stuff like unlicensed activity, which you sent me a video today. It's advertising. It's designated supervisor. You're listed as a branch manager, you're listed as CEO or whatever. You're not designated supervisor. It's, how do we make a complaint? There's all these little things that if I think we had a 30-second to 2-minute video talking about if you call yourself a CEO or branch manager, does enforcement expect you to be a designated supervisor? If you advertise, is your broker's name there? Is it in the right size? And I think the more little videos we can do, and we can share it on our Facebook, the associations can share it, that's getting communications out. And it might not, because nobody wants to file a complaint. It might not be filing a complaint. It might be, hey, Broker John, did you see we're doing this wrong? And I think it sends a message to the public that we are concerned about it, we are getting it out. And so I'm just thinking little video series like that, where we can also have other people share it. And we can even have other people do the videos.
Yeah, and yes, I wanted to say something that I meant to say before this started, which is, we'll throw out ideas here and then, some of the stuff we can do, some of the stuff we can't do. I don't want to stop the ideas from being thrown out, but, we are a licensing agency, there's certain things that we can do as a governmental agency and the messages that we can get out. But I think today we're really talking, just to open it up and brainstorm, and we'll get that message out there. And something that Tony just pointed out that I think to me that is also really important in this conversation, and perhaps we expand this conversation to the inspector committee. We've got easement right-of-way education coming up, so reaching all of our licenses, right? I think we know that primarily we've got the brokers and agents, but also engaging the other types is something that is super important. And Tony just pointed that out. I think that's a great idea with the easement right-of-way education stuff coming up. I think we can look to that too. But this is sort of idea fest in a lot of ways that, we want to hear, and sometimes we can't do all the stuff, but.
Yeah, and some of it is definitely rulemaking, some of it's legislative. And if we can sort out which rulemaking we can do in legislative that we need to start working on, then that gets it out there.
And I might have done a disservice to not explain kind of how we come up with content planning as well as what we currently, so for newsletters, that brings up a great point, and something that we've expanded upon recently, is we not only have a TREC newsletter that goes out to brokers and email, but we also have an education newsletter that goes out to education providers that's specific for communication for education topics. And the articles are written specifically for education providers. We have an inspector newsletter that goes out to inspectors as well. So we do try, and then we also have an appraisal one as well. And those articles are formatted for those license type to be received by them. So just to keep you in mind, like we do try to do that, but yes, I wasn't trying to stifle the idea of expanding upon that. I just wanted you to know that we do have those other newsletters.
Okay, last thing from staff, and we'll just let you throw out ideas. But the reason why this agenda item came to fruition is that it occurred to us that at the end of each commission meeting, there's an agenda item for what do you want to add to the agenda next time? And that's intended to be a little bit of this, right? That what's your passion? What do you want to accomplish as a commissioner? But I don't think we're asking at the right, that's not getting us where we need to go, right? That's just adding a few things to the agenda, but many of these ideas need a lot of work before they then get to a commission agenda. So this is intended to be what do you want to do while you're on the commission? What is your passion for, what excites you about, what do you want your life to be? Maybe even. So today is the idea day, and what we'll do is collect all those ideas. It will be the beginning of a strategic plan that we start developing in about a year. But then over the course of the next meetings, we can whittle that down to what are we first, what can we accomplish in 2022, what do we want to weigh a little while, what requires legislative change, we'll start working on that now. What's just rule-based? What's just a policy? What do we just need to start doing tomorrow?
I like exactly what Chelsea said. This isn't, it kind of ties into you, but it's more going to outreach because I do have my list. But I think what we're seeing and hearing across the board is our competency issues, whether it's with the inspectors, realtors, or whatever. It's not by getting more members or getting more licensees or whatever. It's a competency. And I think we really need to figure out how to educate these people, especially the ones that don't read, in a creative way. And I think by looking at the metrics we have, it's obvious that they like videos, but we need to make engaging videos and something like I feel like we do a good job of messaging in print, but the template, like Christine said, is a little old and dated. You look at the work, you think HARs all the time. It's colorful, it has pictures, it has videos embedded throughout, and it is engaging. And I think we need to figure out how to be more engaging and have more of a presence out there.
Mr. Russell, agreed.
One of the comments made was that coffee with the commission was well received. I think what we can do to make the commission seem more, well, prior to being where I am, it was just a government agency and it had no personality, and I know we're not supposed to have particular personality, but the more you know about them, what's capable, the more you will access them. So I think that's good because it's informal and engages them and engages you with them. I also think a lot of associations have education days where they draw a number of people to hear various speakers. Your participation in that, it helps put faces behind a government agency. And as you know the commission better, you are more apt to pick up the phone and call and ask a question or otherwise. So I think you're on the right track with the personal involvement. And I would suggest that you get involved with the education seminars that that association may have. And
That's part of what broker responsibility is also brought up. They were talking about, and I don't know that it can really work if they brought it up, but I think there's some form of it as an ambassador program. And kind of all of us getting out into the communities and they putting faces with a name and that kind of stuff. It's showing we want to be involved in that we are real people and that we do care, that kind of thing.
Back to the passion, and my passion in this is to raise the bar on behalf of the consumer. And, that was actually in my interview, that was the thing I thought that was short of, but anyway, but, I think that, transparency and the assurance that the consumer could have that if they engage in a licensee, that there would be a certain expectation of, service, and I know that's a slippery slope. There's issues there, but beauty's in the eyes of the beholder, all that kind of thing. But to me, having been in the industry now 35 years or something, there's a very high need for, raising the bar, continuing to raise the bar. There's all kinds of things we can talk about there, but then also, I think communication, and this is the key here, and, the licensees, I sit there and I think, how many people, well, I want to be a corporation because my accountant thought it was a good idea. Really? Okay. All right, so just start cutting my check to, ABC Corporation. It's not quite that simple, Well, so you get into this whole education, but now again, that's being handled in legal 1 and 2 and that sort of thing more now. But we're talking about designated supervisors. And, there's just a lot that continue, that's all excellent stuff. That's raising the bar. And of course, to the legal 1 and 2 and required courses is critical, but then also I'm reminded that adult education is like people got to hear it 10 times or something now. It used to be 7. Everybody's ADD, with all the stuff that keeps being popping up. That's all. I would support anything that, these different channels to get it. I was just thinking, about YouTube. It's like, well, embarrassingly here a while back, I was trying to figure out how to change the battery in the key fob on the car. And so I did a YouTube search, and sure enough, there was another moron on there like me. That took the time to say, hey, you want it on this guy. And so all that is interesting fodder for future thought around communication.
I agree. I love the Palmer LLC designated supervisor. Dan.
We didn't catch a lot of what Mark said, and I'm sorry about that. Delora we were shaking our heads, we can't hear. Anyway, what I think communication needs to be is a fun, catchy title. How many of us get 50 emails about real estate a day? At least 50, maybe more. And the ones that catch our eye are the ones we will read. And if you don't make it fun, they're not going to read it. And I'm going to give you an example that one of our agents, and it's not our company that thought of this. It was some group, some real estate mogul, but they sent out a postcard that said, "Do you know what I did with your neighbor last night?" We got more business off of that, and she listed their neighbor's house. Is what the crux of it is. But it's the title that catches your eye and that gets you to look at stuff. And it's, do you want to kill your co-op agent? Because do you want to wring your co-op agent's neck? Things like that, because that's what the frustration is and where the competency or lack of competency lies, which frustrates so many of us.
Love it.
Amen.
You mentioned LLC, the new supervisor, and it's in legal and legal two. And I would love to be covering stuff before it gets to that point. You know, be ahead. We talked about initiatives, and I've got 3. You know, I mentioned this yesterday. You know what? My office says, what keeps you up at night? Pray about it, and praise what makes you get up in the morning. These 3 keep me up at night. And this is what I kind of want y'all to think about. Number 1, broker portability. We're hearing that all over Arello. License portability, you have a license in one state, you move to another state. You know, I don't necessarily agree that if you have a broker's license in Oklahoma, you need to come in here and take 270 hours your first year. You know, I would love to see a group put together, of course, ESAC, Broker Responsibility Working Group, you know, the licensing department. You know, you've already had principles 1, principles 2 to contract. Can you waive those 3? Take broker responsibility, promulgated contracts, and agency. You know, I mean, let's really dissect that. The second one is wholesaling. I just saw a video that Commissioner Lerner gave me where the guy is advertising a house. You call, he goes, let me make arrangements to show you the house. He's a wholesaler, doesn't even have a contract on the house. And he's trying to assign it before he even has equitable title. That's not only unlicensed activity, you know, it's very misleading. You know, I'd like to put a group together with, of course, enforcement. I think TLTA, I think we bring the title companies in. How many deals are they closing with wholesalers that aren't involving licensees? I think we bring Texas realtors in, a couple of commissioners, and really look at wholesaling. And the last one is the expired license. You know, I don't remember this perfectly, but I'm sure someone can help me. Used to, when your license expired, you were dead in the water. You didn't do anything. And now I classify them as 3 types of expired licenses. They've had no classes and no concern. They don't even know their license is going to expire. They haven't done anything. They paid the $200 deferral, and correct me if I'm wrong, I missed it. And they have 180 days to get their education and renew their license. The second one is they've taken most of their classes or all of their classes, but one class didn't count. Maybe they took a contracts class that didn't count toward the 3 hours. So they paid a $200 referral and they have 6 months. And the third type, they took all the classes, they forgot to do the renewal, okay? And so a week later, 2 weeks later, they go in, they fill out the renewal, they get licensed, their education's done. I don't think there's a $200 deferment on that, I'm not positive. And that's important because during the renewal, they also have to say they've been convicted of a crime or whatever. But I think 180 days is a long time for someone to put off doing the right thing. And I'm not sure when that changed, but I would like to look at that as a group and say, you know, what can we do? And I'm not for sure, maybe licensing can help me. I don't think, does it still stay in bold print, you can't practice real estate while your license is expired? And I think it needs to. And don't get me wrong, we have 124 licensees, and I promise you, I wake up, you know, September 1st and realize somebody did not renew, they didn't pay or whatever, and it needs to be taken care of. I just think 6 months is a long time. But those are the 3 things I would really like to get done before 2022, and that's license portability, wholesaling, and looking at the expired licenses. And I think the license portability, Chelsea, we heard that it should be a simple fix. It really should. But anyway, those are my 3 things that I really want done prior to 22.
When you say before 2022, are you talking the next 4 months?
No. By the end of 2022, now.
Okay.
I know that can be any time. I'll take software. We get it done before 22, yes. I just meant, it's something that's been on my mind. I've talked to you about it for a year and a half. And we've had so many things going on, it's been kind of put on the back burner. And that's why I think this is so important. What initiatives do we really need to work on? What shareholders do we need to bring in? Is it legislative? Is it rulemaking? If it's legislative, let's get our things lined up and be prepared to get legislative change. Because I think it all protects the consumer and I think it improves our industry. And I'll yield the rest of my time to whoever.
It looks like Commissioner Miller had her hand raised.
Commissioner Miller.
I want to address one is the license portability, because I will tell you, it scares me. When I know that Kentucky can take 12 hours, they have a 4-page contract that doesn't say much. And this is today. And you think I'm going to want a license that transfers from Kentucky and put them in my company? I don't think so. So I don't know how Arello wants us to, or Governor Abbott for that matter, wants us to address those things. But I think we as an industry have to be very careful about that. So you're going to have to persuade me, Scott, on that agenda item. But
I totally agree. But if you've taken, 30 hours of principle, you've taken law contract, and our education and licensing can match, class for class, then I think that can be done. I mean, right now, I can get a license in Georgia and practice in New Mexico because Georgia recognizes Texas and New Mexico. So no, there are issues. That's why it has to be worked out. But we should not just blanketly give portability. I think, but you can match classes and make it a little bit more reasonable.
you can make it more reasonable, but then you have to worry, the brokers have to worry about geographic competency. And I can't swear that my agents that work on the east side of Netras and sell on the west side of Netras, because there's 19 counties. Sorry, they don't know beans about what's going on over there on the other side. And that's what law firms are.
Yeah, you bring up a valid point. We operate in El Paso. We have one county, one city. I don't know how you geographical competency in Dallas or Houston or a large city. I really don't. That would scare me.
You don't. And to address something that Mark said, I think it was Mark, about the complaints or lack of complaints. I noticed that there were like 3 complaints for unlicensed people. I can tell you that goes on crazily all the time, or the expired licenses. It might be a headline to say, have you checked to see if your agent is licensed? That would be an outreach program, because the public doesn't know or care. And that's a problem, that the public doesn't know or care. And it hurts the commission, it hurts our industry overall. And it's rampant. It's rampant. And nobody wants to complain because they don't want to get a bad name and a bad reputation in their area, because then agents won't come to them, or it'll hurt competitively with recruiting. And they won't even show their houses, even though we know boycotting is illegal. It's against the code of ethics. It still will happen when we start having more complaints. So it's a double-edged sword that we're working with. And again, I don't know how to fix it. I don't have the solution.
There's your headline, is your co-op agent license, okay? That's your headline.
Commissioner Hargraves with his hand up.
Commissioner Hargraves.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to what Jan was just saying. I've heard that from a lot of people that have talked to me, is that the complaints are not being made because somehow certain agents or brokers think that it's gonna, and I quote, go against their license. I don't know exactly what that means or who they think that's gonna come from, but that's certainly a thought out there, is that if they file a complaint that somehow they get penalized for doing so. And so we've got to get that message out that that's not the case.
Agreed. Commissioner Martin.
I want to go back to, Jan was talking about portability, and we have to also remember that some of these states only have a broker's license. They don't have a sales agent and a broker's license, so that would be hard. And like we had discussed before, broker responsibility working group is pretty much said class for portability comes into play, except for the military spouse. There were a couple different requirements because we're required to do different things by statute. Also going back to kind of like what our priorities are, the complaint system is a huge deal. I've kind of been a proponent of talking about what can we do on a more informal basis that at least would get the point across, and maybe with the new website, we can have an upload system, like for minor advertising complaints or something else that we can address without doing a formal complaint, because the fear is real. I talk to people all the time. I don't want to file a complaint, it's too lengthy. I'm scared of retaliation. TREC's not going to do anything. I hear it all the time. People are texting me their complaints like I can do something. I honestly don't know what our role as TREC commissioners, what we can do, except send it to staff, and the staff can open a complaint. But we need to figure out a way to get more people engaged in order to increase competency and increase the value of the agents that are actually licensed. So I think that needs to be a priority. We need to be more proactive than reactive. We need to not quit. We're reacting to complaints versus training to not get to that complaint side. So that was one of my big things. And another one of my big initiatives is figuring out how to do a mentorship or apprenticeship program when you get a license. It's not taking away money from anybody, but it's helping people get trained and have more broker responsibility. And we've discussed it in broker responsibility working group, and people agree there needs to be something in place other than the first time you make a sale or list a property. There needs to be more engagement by the broker.
Talk more about that informal complaint. Where you're having else.
I mean, there's possibly a way, like I've been getting texts with like a realtor sign that's not in compliance. Well, that's not a huge issue. It's not like a money issue. It's not hurting the consumer, but it is not following the rules. So there needs to be a way either to upload it through the new website, with all the documentation, or some way to make a complaint which people are going to get a call or an advisory letter or something to show, hey, you're not doing this right. We need to fix this. And then maybe you do something as a point system, like a driver's license or something in some states that you have X amount of times that you've been warned, and then it's a larger complaint. So it's something that we can all think about and kind of iron out, but there needs to be something in between going to enforcement for this huge investigation for something minor. And I don't know exactly how it looks right now, but I think we could all figure it out. I think it's something simple we could figure out.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to the unauthorized practice of real estate, a person that is unlicensed, right? That's very black and white, right? And so when somebody would submit a complaint, so I think someone mentioned that, people are averse to making a complaint for fear of retaliation or fear of perception of the tattletale, what have you. And so in that regard, someone dealing in real estate that doesn't have a license, I mean, you would think that another agent, broker, consumer, whoever is able to submit a complaint anonymously without having to, report, I'm the person that turned this guy in, right? And so I don't know if the current rules allow for that. And if so, what is,
Let me answer that part. I don't think any of us, unlicensed activity is not an issue reporting. Where we fear the retribution is, I do real estate in a smaller market, and I do a complaint on Mark, and Mark then may decide to really watch everything I do. We just fear the retribution. I don't think we have a fear as far as reporting unlicensed activity because they should be selling real estate, and we should. We cannot do an anonymous complaint. And
We can do anonymous complaints.
but an anonymous complaint, if they ask for the complainer to be identified, we have to identify them, correct?
So
No.
it's limited.
Okay, hold on.
So the stat,
Are you? Hi, police.
Because that came out of sunset, a certain part of the process can be anonymous, but not the entire process. But, go ahead, we have to force on here, okay?
so it's a minor confidentiality in this. So basically, you file your initial complaint, you can open it up without revealing who filed the complaint. But it all comes out in the end. It's just how the statute reads, basically the initial process. So that's the actual filing of it.
But if Mark filed on me and you sent me a letter, could I not request then who the plaintiff was?
We have to reveal it. Because it comes out in the investigative process, and especially when the complaint's closed, all that stuff is available for open record processing. Now, in this situation, a lot of times we'll take those complaints for unlicensed activity and for advertising complaints. Because we can open it and probably close it without revealing the other person's identity, unless they went around and wanted to or do an open records request and request that information. Because typically in those types of situations, we identified some situations where we don't need the involvement from the person filing the complaint. Obviously, substantive complaints that deal with transactions and stuff, we need to interview the people, and if it goes to a hearing, everything is out there.
And that was my point, in a case where, you know, for instance, let's say the commission would become aware that somebody is unlicensed and dealing in transactions, right? Yeah, at that point, the commission became aware of evaluation of somebody that is unlicensed, and at that point, the commission would open up the complaint, right? Would be the complaint.
The complaints about signs could be
We still need someone to file a complaint. We can choose to keep that person to file a complaint anonymous, depending on the situation. But
Because
the person needs to file a complaint, because we're not out there searching around. In my experience, a lot of the unlicensed activity is within the license holder community themselves. It's people that are uninspired or one way or another. And there's situations where, let's say this, basically, there's a lot of exceptions in the License Act that a lot of people really don't understand. So basically, we have to research it and investigate it. We find out maybe this fell into one of those exceptions. That's why you see the percentage of unlicensed activity, true unlicensed activity, is fairly low. Because they don't end up being in that category because they fall into something else. So.
Commissioner Miller, you got to follow up, and then we're going to take a little break. Commissioner Miller.
Did you say me?
Yeah.
We had an anonymous complaint right after this law changed with the Sunset Commission. And it was a new agent clicked the wrong box on Facebook. And he put himself in as something that looked like an associate broker when he was a new agent. I swear it was probably an ex-wife who turned him in. The other thing, though, that you could do and have an anonymous complaint was a sign. We see signs wrong all the time. If we knew that TREC would keep that anonymous, I think we could police something like that. But I don't want to, that would burden as many wrong signs as are out there. That could bog TREC down for the next 10 years.
So just to close, from Commissioner Warren's point of view, we have it's not the best analogy. We kind of have a slight ticketing-ish system for inspectors that use the wrong inspection report. We still have to do an agreed order because that's just how we do it. But basically,
We used to do like $100 if they're one version behind, 200 and 300. So it's conceptually, it's possible, keeping it slightly anonymous, that may require rule or statutory, evaluation. But it's not within the realm of conception,
Commissioner Russell.
Can it remain anonymous until it is, you have determined that it is a violation? And then,
They have to, any step of the process, if they're the respondent, we have to reveal it. Just in the initial opening, we will black out the name. But if they come back and say, hey, you filed against us, because of due process reasons, we'll have to reveal the actual complaint. It takes them proactive to ask that. But in the end, then, we would close it under our own cover, and if they still came back after it's closed, even then, we would have to.
In my experience, it's pretty obvious who's turning you in.
All right, let's take a 10-minute.
Yeah.
10-minute break, and then y'all come back with your initiatives for 2022. December 31st, 2020. We get started. All right. The other initiatives. Somebody. What else?
Mr. Chairman, as mentioned yesterday, I'd like for us to, or I think my initiative to start looking at an internal audit committee, to be looking at different areas with respect to, financial accounting, compliance, efficiency, fraud, whistleblower, and risk assessment with respect to the TREC. So, I know that the Texas Government Code does mention that the internal auditor should report to the board of governors, which is this board, and the ultimate responsibility is with us. So I think it's very appropriate to get that set up so that we at least can give direction and oversight to the internal auditor, as opposed to that being a management function.
Okay. Agreed. I have a request for you to move one over so they can see you on the camera. I'm not sure whether they want to see you on the camera, but they did request it. So, okay, on this internal audit committee, how should that be made up? I mean, we're not gonna build a car here, but what are your ideas? You have a couple commissioners, somebody from budget and finance, somebody outside budget and finance. How's that put together?
So normally a committee of the board is assigned by the chairman. So to the extent that whoever has expertise in that area, then that's, who you'd like to see. It just depends. And it could be a committee of 3 or 4. It doesn't have to be the entire commission itself.
Would a combination of the budget committee and executive committee be the best bet? That way, not all one committee is doing multiple tasks. What else? What other initiatives? We should get all this done by August 30th.
So are we talking about, I guess we pitched out a lot of what I thought were really good ideas, kind of concepts. Is around, your earlier round, right, which was a pretty exhaustive list in some areas. I mean, should we try to detail those? I mean, because I find myself, like those, because I want to, again, when I was on those, I think we've got to increase transparency both to the members and the public, and also, try to, continue to raise the bar and expectations, what a consumer can get or should get. They're dealing with a practitioner, so a lot of that, I think, was good thinking, because for a number of years, I don't think the practitioner wanted to, anything that was going to be interaction with TREC was probably going to be a bad thing.
Commissioner Miller brought that up. Before she was commissioner, she didn't really want to talk to TREC, Yeah. And so you bring up a great point.
I mean, only bad thing, it's like only bad things could be coming from that. So I think the idea that, and it started, it's not like that. I mean, I think the progress that's been made is phenomenal. Continuing to expand on that and look at some of the different, vehicles that, the members, are using. I know when I talk to our folks, it's like, I know we got 1,200 people that every one of them want it different, of course, and I always end up saying, hey, if you want smoke signals, just let me know that however it is you want it, and let's try to, what's the saying, let's meet them where they are. We gotta meet our people in the public.
And what I thought I would do at the end of this little segment is everybody get your ideas that you pitch and, formulate a little bit. Let's get them to Amber. I don't know if Amber knew that. And then she's going to kind of put everything together, send back to us for us to kind of prioritize, this one needs to be done immediately. Let's work on this one. That way we don't have everything at one time and not know which direction. So that's kind of what we're planning on doing as far as prioritizing.
Well, on that same note, can people maybe send in what they think is the largest or the best way to start outreach and what topics they think need to be discussed or brought up first and how to proceed with that?
Yeah, I think you could do, initiatives and then outreach and, I think the more ideas we get, and we'll kind of prioritize and try to get, I think we take care of the easiest things first. If it's a video and it's a lowest hanging fruit, let's take care of it first, check it off the list. And then just work it down till we just keep working toward the goal. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think we're seeing in this meeting some commonality in terms of method and also ideas, and that's something that we as staff can take and start looking at immediately so that, if there's some immediate product out of this meeting that gets things going and the ideas can keep coming as we develop more things. And I think too, something that would be helpful to know is if any of the commissioners have interest in participating in some of these videos. When you send in your responses, I think that'd be really helpful because, I don't know that you're celebs, but you're important. People know who you are in your industry and they want to hear that message. So if there's anyone, I know that Chair Kessner does the Coffee with the Commission, right? And people really tune into that. And I know Commissioner Lerner's done some different outreach activities. So if anyone has interest in participating in the outreach that we do, these videos we're talking about, little segments, what's the public interest component of that? As a public member, what does a public member do? Just things like that. Please let us know, Amber, me, Christine, so that we can look into that as well.
I think also if people see something that comes across their email or see on social media or whatever that catches your eye, send it in. Send it to Vanessa or Christine or whoever and say, look at this. That's a great way to get ideas.
And just to point that out, we did get an email from one of the commissioners and an article was created because of that email. So this month's article that's going to be published later this week is a result of that. Somebody sent us an email that I think that should be talked about.
Others?
I have a question. You gave a percentage of managed women earlier. Do you have a percentage of ethnicity with that? And how are we targeting it? I'm adding a second part of the question. And are we targeting minorities, more minorities today? And if not, is there a way we can?
That is a multifaceted question.
Yeah.
I will look at Facebook's insights. I know that on Google Analytics for the website, I believe that we can dig down deep enough to surmise ethnicity based on certain criteria from Google Analytics, although I am not 100% sure on that. So I can get you that information when I get that. I do not believe that Facebook or Twitter or any of those identify ethnic background.
Well, and if we collect that information, what we'll also need to collect is what the demographics are, of our license holder base to know if a certain subset of our license holder base is opening emails versus not, like who are we engaging with versus not engaging with well, right? Is that where you're headed, of just capturing all the audiences kind of?
Well, of course, spend dollars. We know that the African American community biggest growing area, and it seems to me that we really want, and I'm always focused on finance, I'm on small business stuff.
Yep.
So it's how we generate more income. I understand the marketing, I understand the communication, but at the end of the day, we have to drive revenue. I don't care if we do it in a soft way, and that's a big market that's growing. And it seems to me that we can target more agents in that arena going to agency. I think it'll spur even more growth.
But we're not doing targeted advertising. We're not paying for it. So I think you're trying to reach the masses anyway. So it's not like you're targeting a man or a woman or whoever. So I think everyone has the ability to get the information. So it's not that they're spending money on any of it. Does that make sense? We're not paying for targeted advertising. So until they can't target certain male, female, ethnicity unless they're paying for that targeted advertising. They're just going out to them at this point. So it's whoever chooses to engages.
Commissioner Williams, this is for those of you on remotely, this is Tony Slagle. We do a demographic study on the board side. It's voluntary, a lot of the information is voluntary because we can't ask for it. So in terms of knowing what our license holder base is, it just depends on whether they give us that information or not. So it's, it's a little sketchy on kind of knowing that stuff based on some of the things we can and cannot hold the information for. Exactly, you can ask, they don't have to answer. So in terms of, I don't know how difficult it'd be to pull that information up on the commission side. The board is, is much smaller in terms of the number of license holders we have. But I'm just letting you know, just in terms of the universe, that information is not as readily available as we probably would like it to be in terms of what you want, what you're the information you want to get.
Thank you. But my mother always said, if you don't ask, you never find out.
Right.
Well, and it would also be interesting to see, like, what are the types of people who are subject to enforcement actions? And then how do we make sure that we're engaging that type of person for more education? Just to be proactive instead of just capturing people on the back end. So there's a lot we can do with that data. We can get it, we can work on it.
Okay.
Could you extrapolate the ones that have answered those demographic questions on their license? And say, okay, if say 40% of the license base answered the questions, and then you can do the emails.
Sure, I need to get more information on that. And what Tony was saying is that we asked the question on the appraiser side, so not on the TREC side.
Oh.
But I'm thinking that we may have some of that demographic information. We're just not certain that it's totally accurate. Is that right, Denise? I'm looking at you.
We do ask, but it's optional.
It's optional.
They can answer, I prefer not to answer, or they can leave it blank. It doesn't prevent us from processing. So we do ask on every application, but they're not required to provide it.
So what Denise just said, just for purposes of those remote, is that we do ask, but there is a box you can check that says that I prefer not to answer. So we can, I think we could probably run a report to see who answered that way, which I think it answers your question.
Right, and then you take that, let's say 30% answered it, and so you extrapolate that 30% to the population.
Yeah, assume they look all the yeah.
Of the population.
Okay. And going back to Commissioner, I believe that we can track age and gender and location, but not ethnicity on the social media platform.
Back to enforcement, is there a way to track percentages, license under 5 years, license over 5 years, license over 10 years? Is there a way to track that?
We don't monitor that, but I mean, it's something, I mean, we take that into consideration when we punish someone. I mean, it's one of the.
Another year with the one.
That's not something we keep track of. I mean, we factor and take into consideration for punishing them. But we don't look at graphics and, you know.
How long have they been licensed or?
People that, you know, within the past 2 years are, you know, 90% likely, or 90% of the people that we discipline.
But the thing is there, right? I mean, somewhere in the database, their original license date is there?
Yes.
Okay, so
It was just a matter of doing a report to extrapolate,
doing the analysis.
because right now, it does what the percentage of license holders that actually get into discipline, which over the past, you know, decade, basically, it's been 1% or less for a license holder base, ever gets a complaint filed.
And I think that's a big number. I mean, we have 206,000 licensees and less than 1% ever had a complaint. I mean, I'm not saying we're walking on water, but that's a good number. Okay. Did you have a question, Commissioner Leonard?
I do. My question, I'm sorry, I keep asking for something to say. So yesterday we talked about leniency and how a lot of us felt like some of the punishments are pretty lenient. And I think we had said also that maybe we can look into that at some point of what can be done for some of these complaints, which maybe you can talk to that a little bit more. But also we said that 25% of criminal background checks.
I think that's just like a ballpark.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever run a group statistic on
Right.
how many of our license holders actually have a criminal background. I think they base it upon like society itself and then extrapolate it that way.
Because I mean, that's a little concerning, especially when we talked about the occupations code. Because I was reading that last night, it was, the preacher said, if you have a felony or a criminal background, for the most part, you don't get a license, which is what I've always believed as well. So why is there leniency?
Those factors set out in chapter 53 of the occupations code, and we have to go through the factors and providing those things, basically how long the crime's been, you know, how old they were, what they've done since committing the criminal offense. It's not really black and white. And over the past, since I've been here, the legislature's loosened that up, you know, because there's been a general trend towards giving people a second chance. Because, I mean, honestly, a lot of people that we run into, they did some silly things with their kids. Maybe like a trespassing or something like that. It may not be a serious felony. And a lot of felonies we run into are, you know, maybe marijuana possession or something like that, you know, they just.
I mean,
there has to be a connection, between the crime and the license. And if there's not, then we're less likely to have a basis for denying that application, depending on the seriousness of the crime.
And you also have to ensure that there's a continuing threat to the public, which that's another factor that we have to prove up to the civil judges. So.
There's a great tension here, as we think, well, these are dangerous people, why are we letting them into the homes of people that we serve? It's been almost 2 years now that the governor sent a letter to all licensing agencies, and he had 3 points, and one of the points was make sure that your licensing is allowing for some criminal history that's appropriate for the license. And so that's the tension.
it's just scary because you maybe can be a barber or have a license for something else, or a plumber or whatever. This is like a huge financial license, so to speak. It's dealing with a lot of money.
Oh,
And
I respect that.
so that's what scares me.
And Commissioner Miller had a question. She had her hand up.
One of the things that I requested on whatever you all had asked for through ESAC is more cooperation between the different agencies like Texas Realtors, the TDLA, or the title companies and all that. But to the question of who has the most complaints, I got that years ago from E&O carriers through a task force, and the work on the task forces of various industries is what brought me to the commission, in my opinion. But the agents who have been in the business 7 years or more are the ones that get the most complaints. And that's why newbies are out scared to death. It's when the agents get cocky that they start doing whatever they want to, thinking that they know better than the law, etc.
You know, that's a good point. I was served on one of those as well, and they had some very interesting data from these insurance filings, and there was, trying to remember, I'd have to ask Travis, sure, but anyway, I think at one point they came back and said that for every 800 residential real estate transactions, that generates about one, I don't know if that was a demand letter or something. So that, you know, it's a little more serious than some of the complaints maybe, but I mean, somebody's taking it to that level. So if you kind of do the math on that, that is an interesting metric that's kind of out there, and we can update that. But they have a lot of information, and a lot. And I'll say another thing: a lot of these matters never get filed with TREC, although they could. Not every single one of them is a TREC complaint, but you know, I mean, there is some cross on there, so that's excellent.
So why don't we kind of move this toward maybe discussing this with enforcement, you know, as far as the demographics and as far as, you know, stuff like that. You brought up a point that on one of the surveys we received, it was one of the consumers' biggest concerns was the fact that the agent did not help them, say this very bluntly, pick an inspector, you know, and I mean, I've seen hundreds of inspections, they never had one, but I really can't guide them. So maybe there's some stuff there. We can also throw in this initiative with enforcement as far as, you know, what can we do to help direct them to make better decisions and tie in with TLTA, tie in with Texas Realtors to get some of the demographics they have to help our members. So.
And are you imagining that when you say enforcement, the enforcement committee?
Right, exactly, enforcement committee. Okay, other initiatives. Because I know Renata is just waiting to jump on us with a budget or presentation, so. What else?
I'd like to see more information coming from what's going to broker lawyer. And I think if the commission would, if we knew that, and I don't know if we all have permission to go to the broker lawyer meetings. I've never had the time that I could spend there, but just to know what's coming down and what they are being hit with that they're going to discuss, because they can go off on tangents pretty easily. And they also can kill stuff that shouldn't be killed. I had a reputation that we were the only company that fought the mineral issue, and I fought it for 8 years. But until it hit San Antonio, it didn't get into the contract.
I think with the online comment, we probably have a lot more availability to see what's coming. I'll let General Counsel Burgess and Tracy, we all cannot go because then we can have a little open meeting issues.
That's right.
We tag team.
But some can attend. I'll say, broker lawyer has very detailed minutes. Ron actually does them in the meeting. And so you can see, those get posted on the website. And I think Amber sends the link when they've been posted or when the video's been posted. But you can see, for example, right now, it lists everything that they have deferred action on, but they are looking at, with the new changes. So that's one way. I know attending those meetings can be hard because they can be 7 to 12 hours, right? But certainly those minutes, I think, are instructive. And if there's anything in terms of the report that we give at the meeting that you, Commissioner Miller, or anyone else would like to see, in terms of, what are they going to look at next? What's, things like that, please just let me know. We can work on that. I think that's great. But that's a really important committee. I think, what they do impacts everyone.
Great. Other initiatives? Now, let's take these ideas, get them an email, get them to Amber, prioritize them, we'll kind of rank them as far as what can be done, what takes rule, what takes legislative changes, what might take additional task force. We did talk yesterday about putting some time frames on some of these. If we have a task force and we want to look at something, let's give them 30 days, 60 days or whatever. That way it just doesn't survive. Is that, that's not a good word, but that's what came out that it doesn't linger. Okay. And so, let's get those to Amber, and if you think of something, you get on the plane or driving home, you think of something, add it. Just because it wasn't said here does not mean it can't be put on the list. Okay. All right. Agenda item number 6, budget committee and budget process recommendations.
Great job.
And Christine, I know you got all that down and
All of these notes.
Good morning, everyone. With agenda item number 6, the special amendment meeting of the recommendations, I really wanted this to be a discussion, really just to see if you guys have any feedback over the products that we're presenting to you all, if there's any additional information that you would like, is there something more, is there something less? Just to kind of get your feedback to make sure that the information that we're providing to you all is useful, is what you guys would like to believe, so that we can make the best decisions for the day.
I think the more graphs you have, the better for us. I'll follow the numbers, but it's just so much easier to see when they show membership going up and revenues and stuff. I think the more graphs you can put, not only us, but I think it translates better because of consumers.
Yeah, and I was going to say that, although the financial information that's presented in the board packet is very comprehensive, I think sometimes we get lost in a lot of the numbers that are out there, and it's kind of hard to follow. So maybe going forward, you and I can look at maybe simplifying the reporting of the information. You can always provide the detail, but if you kind of summarize it into like a 1-page, I think it's easier to digest from a non-financial person reading the information. And most certainly, even on the accountancy board, we had pages and pages and pages of financial statements, which included balance sheet, and all that good stuff. And so, summarizing, into a 1 or 2 page format, it would be, I think, well received. And so, in my mind, what I'm looking at is your comparisons from budget to actual, and also current period to the same time last year, right? And so you kind of see those 2 metrics following each other, and other than that, I think the detailed financial information in the report is great. Saturday morning reading over a cup of coffee, but that's
My Saturday mornings will be spent YouTube watching videos. One thing that might impact the budget that we might want to put as an initiative is we have a really incredible market. And our license count is going way up. I really figure within the next, few months, the market's not going to be as hot. And we're having a lot of agents move inactive, okay? And once they move inactive, and they stop renewing and stop paying fees to renew, it's going to impact on our budget.
Yes.
And I think we need to message to them that even if they're inactive, keep the education up. Because if you're inactive more than 2 years, you retake the test. And if there's any additional hours, you take the hours. Is that correct? Is it 2 years to retest?
Actually, you can stay on inactive status indefinitely.
Right, but if you let it expire, then it's 2 years.
So I think the messaging could be a reminder to continue to renew, and you don't have to take education. The renewal fee is the same to renew active or inactive. So if they keep renewing, then there's no problem for them to switch back to active when they want to start practicing again. But if they do let it expire, that's when they're up against having to retest, take any new education that might be required, start over again.
We might want to look back at the last time the market went south and see what it did to our license count. And because it definitely have a budget impact.
And we also watch very closely what our renewal rate is. In fact, this year, we're a little bit low on our renewal rate, but our new applications are so high that it's covering it. So watching both of those is pretty, it's like a 2% difference. It's not much, but I expected it to be higher than that. But watching those two numbers is an important indicator of where we'll end up from a budget perspective. And right now, we're in great shape because our applications and our applications are so high. But as soon as that flattens or goes down, we haven't seen in many years. But we will need to toggle our operations. But it will also mean that we won't need to grow as fast, and that we can, through a TREC kind of adjust. We have a budget that allows that we have enough of a buffer and a safety net that we have several months of safety net before to allow for adjustments if we see those trends change. That helps.
Because we cut a ton of fees 2 years ago. We got
it all small, but it was like $10 a year,
right.
But it was cut some and really just a simplification of the fees. But yes, you're right.
And we don't want, it used to be $20 to transfer a license, and it was $10 to transfer a license, that's free.
Right.
And we don't ever want to go back and charge the $10. I think it's just important we keep track. You said something yesterday about instead of a 5-year kind of history, you went to 3. Is that just to get more accurate?
That's what I understood. 3 years, we're doing a 3-year look back instead of a 5-year look back.
Okay.
I think 2016, if I look at the data correctly, 2016, everything went down, and I'm not sure what happened in 2016. But other than 2016, the numbers are just going up and up and up and up and up and up. And so, when you look at the budgeting process, the amount of revenues that were projected, and if you look at the agenda and the budget proposal, you'll see that each and every year we overshot it. In fact, we already overshot it, this year. And so we wanted to have a better estimation of where we thought our projected revenues were going to be. And to that end, you're exactly right. Tracking our revenue is driven by the amount of licenses that we have. And so if we could also include that as part of our metrics that we're looking at in summary, is to show the number of licensing, brokers, agents, and the number each quarter or each month, and that way we can see the trends that, at least within the current fiscal year. We started with this, we added these in each quarter, and I think you'll have the information that you need to show, the current economic, circumstances of where we are today and how it correlates to the number of agents and the number of people practicing in the state.
And if I may, sir, so just a point of clarification for myself, so the budget dashboard that I presented back in February that had that kind of high level overview of everything, is that pretty much the preferred method of the information dissemination? And I shared it with you back in May, and you were asking for the old.
Yeah.
But if I could just do that and send that to you all monthly.
Let's get together, you and I, and then we'll kind of come up with a, I guess, a simplified, again, the detail, you can leave it in there. It's great information for people that are technical like me that like to see that information. But from a board member that perhaps isn't as technical, they can go to what matters, right? To what counts. These are the things that, and oftentimes you're going to find that financial information is like watching paint dry, right? It's not exciting. It's like the hour, you kind of move on. But at the very least, where our fund balance is, what's our 90-day reserve? Those are the things that somebody would want to know, right? Without having to dive into having to search for it in a very complicated spreadsheet.
That's snapshot, executive snapshot.
Exactly.
One question I got, and back to this license count number going on, is I wonder if the percentage of realtor members versus licensees is changing.
I'll tell you, it's been very consistent between 70 and 76%.
Is that right? Okay.
And that is phenomenally high.
Yeah.
And now, when you do the numbers, you have to look at active licenses and kicked out LLCs. Most states are 50 and below, and yeah, so that my market, Texas Realtors always tracks that monthly. And at one time it was a nice 77%. Something that popped in my mind when we were talking about that, we talked yesterday briefly about the recovery fund. Do we need to go back and look at that as far as the limits, because the limits is 100,000, was set at 92. So that's something I'm putting back on my list that I think we definitely need to look at over and that would be legislative, correct? But actually you just can't change that.
Right, sorry.
Okay, something we could just change it. Okay.
Today.
Other things on the budget?
Yeah, we've, since I've been on this commission, you guys have always had the treasury note as a place that we put our funds at, and it seems to me that it has to be another way. It hasn't been another avenue. Are you guys telling me that, telling us that that's the only place we can? I mean, because the percentage that we're earning on those dollars just don't make sense to me. I get heartburn every time I read it.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, as a CSI agency, we are kind of directed as to how we can utilize those funds and where we have to invest those our dollars, and it is by U.S. and government securities. So it's treasury and things of that nature. And I can provide you the actual reference here.
And that's actually part of the Public Fund Investment Act. I think that, and the investment policy which dictates the investment vehicles that you're allowed to go in there. Typically for even government entity, it's going to be very safe to let government back securities.
Other things, Chief Financial Officer. They think there's no questions. You've done an outstanding job. Yeah.
I have a question. No, just as we're circling up in terms, this is not related to the budget item. I actually want to go back to Christine's item first. This came up with broker responsibility worker. In terms of reporting, talking about ease of reporting, do you, as a commission, want to see stats similar to what was reported today in terms of engagement and social media and website? Do you want to see a quarterly report? Do you want to see I think we've done an annual presentation typically, but is there an appetite for something that more, quarterly? I don't know, monthly is helpful, but monthly, something along those lines, to know where we are with that stuff. Do you think that's something that?
Right now, especially when we're trying to formulate ideas and figure out which avenues work best, that it's better to get it more often than less often,
Sure.
especially just for right now.
I think quarterly. I mean, there's probably a couple slides that Christine showed that I will probably pop in my office meeting or maybe even send to, the board of directors.
And we will send that out, yeah, and we'll send that to everyone, so that they have the slideshow, but yeah, okay, so that's good to know, just a quarterly.
Yeah, Commissioner Payne made a great point of too much information. I think at one point on a yearly evaluation where we are, we should have more detail, but on a quarterly basis, let's simplify the numbers.
So something more like what you saw today with, number of likes this month, or I ain't making this up, I'm not good at social media. But something like that, and then at the annual level, some of those more detailed reports that she can get.
Yeah, we detailed it last year, what we did, what the trend looked like as we move on.
Perfect, okay.
The email metrics would be really great.
Okay.
See how people are engaging with the.
I will say that I've experienced that in our local chamber board where the public relations person, goes through her report on social media and communications and all that, and at that point, we see it every month, and it becomes very it's like everybody just glazes over, it's like, okay, next, and so I just want to caution you that presenting information, that it has a purpose, right? I think you mentioned that right now, since we're looking at it, it's important, at some point, maybe quarterly is probably appropriate as well. So just caution that numbers like that, eventually, it's like, okay, we got 10,000 likes.
Sure.
At some point, it's like, well, what does that mean?
Sure, no, I think that makes absolute sense, so we'll work with Christine to include a quarterly report for now, and looking at this in terms of initiatives and building this up, and a more detailed report at the annual level, and then perhaps that gets pulled back as we progress. I think that'd be helpful.
And the reason we like Christine's is it was colorful, it was something you can look at, not numbers. It had colors, the bullets, and very easy to share. And as far as the budget, it's in the detail, but add some charts and stuff, because
Some happy faces.
some happy faces, yes. I just think it's easier to grasp, especially if you're talking to someone, and you can show them, we have 439,000 followers, which is more than twice our licensing count.
And the same caution that I just threw out with respect to the numbers on communications and social media, links and likes, it follows true for financial information, right? It's the same repetitive information that, at some point, it just becomes very redundant and very procedural and very, routine, is what I'm trying to say. And so, in order to maximize, the true, I've always thought that a board of governance should have an equal amount of forward-looking as we're doing right now, as opposed to stuff that happened in the past. And so while you use the information that you're looking, to the past to kind of help you determine really strategically what you're trying to accomplish looking forward. And I think that's really the important thing of what we're trying to do here is be better and improve what we're currently doing.
As far as the budget process, two commissioners who sit on the budget committee, Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Wilkinson, Commissioner Russell is relatively new with me. Are y'all happy with the process, the way we've been doing it as far as having a workshop? What do we need to do different in the process of the budget? Anything?
I think with the addition to Ms. Williams, Been a great choice for us. Me being here longer probably, well, under the other committee, I think it's been going great and it's getting better. I think the process shouldn't need to change at all. Just keep moving the same direction.
Thank you for that, and it's been very helpful to have your engagement on the budget. I know that was an item, that was an area of concern during the sunset review process, that the commissioners were, I don't even remember how it was said, but there was an issue there. And so I think we have made great progress to share the budget in a way that is a little bit more digestible so that you can make decisions. It's important to me that you are making a decision on the approved budget, that it is an actual decision point, and that you can review it and say, why are we only spending this much money in this area? Or why are we spending so much money in this area? Should our salaries not be going up so quickly? But, Chair Kastner, I think about 18 months or 2 years ago, you said, I think we need more of a reserve than 2 or 3 months. Let's increase that to 6. In our most recent budget committee meeting, there was a question on travel. Let's increase the travel. I think we'll probably be traveling more. For that to be an authentic process, it's very important. Anything that I approve, I want that to be subject to your review, or at least within our budget policy. I approve small things, you do the big stuff. So I'm very pleased with the way that we're interacting on a very complex process.
Commissioner, you had a question, comment?
Were you speaking to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought I heard you ask for our comments from where we've come from, Miller and Williams and myself as commissioners. We've come so far, and thank goodness we have an educational, talking about being engaged. We as commissioners truly, I think, the new ones especially, you all have such a leg up because you're getting into the process of being engaged so much earlier on. So I think that we've come a long ways. And this meeting, while I've been listening primarily this morning, I think that Christine did a phenomenal job. We've got some real stars on that commission, in our commission now. And we can really take it, in my opinion, we can really move the agendas and the initiatives. And looking at the next item on workshop agenda items, we've got more than we can say grace over now, don't we?
Agreed. Anything else on the budget process, Commissioner Lerner?
Really, budget. I want to go back to Vanessa's question about kind of the interaction and outreach. If there's any way that we can get the email metrics now, and then just to have a basis for now, and then move forward for the quarterly or whatever you want to do, but it would just be nice to have something to start with.
I'd be happy to provide. I have reports pulled for us in our overview of how Gov Delivery, Gov Delivery is part of our service. They provide account overviews where they kind of tell us how we're doing in comparison to other agencies and expectations. Is that what you're looking for? Or
Patients with our emails that are going out.
Right.
Who's engaging? What are they clicking on? Are they opening it? How many are bouncing? That kind of thing.
I can give you that overview today if you like, or would you like an email? Perfect. I can absolutely do that. No problem. Thank you. And if I don't get what you need, I probably can get more. So the Gov Delivery tool is extremely helpful. So I think we can get it for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on the budget process? Let's go to agenda item number 7, and I don't know what we're going to call the future workshop agenda ideas. I think we have a whole bunch.
I think you do too. So I will say that typically November a portion of it is reserved for training, right, for our annual training. It looked a little bit different last year because it was a weird time for everybody. And I want to make sure that what we provide, there's some things in annual training we're always gonna cover, even just at a high level. But if there are things that you aren't interested in, that you think you don't know enough about, even if that means you go back through that guidebook, which is actually linked on the website at the spot where all your pictures are. If there are things you want us to cover that you're super interested in, or that you feel like you didn't get enough of when you started, or whatever it is, I would love to know that. And I think, you know, we'll reserve some of that for training, but I want to also, you know, we're talking about future ideas. It doesn't just have to be boring training, let's say, because I think people's eyes kind of glaze over at some point when it comes to that. So if it's a portion of that, please feel free to give me your insight into what it is you want to see. I know I've heard some folks talk about it. You know, they didn't know that their orientation, that some of the stuff didn't get covered. But what are those things? Let us know, and we can include them in a more in-depth level at that training. But there's also tons of room for other stuff here. That doesn't have to be an all-day lecture fest for me. I hope it is not, actually.
Okay.
Will we have the opportunity to circle back around to what we're talking about today, to go over where we've gone from today until then and get our ideas?
Just put that on there, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. As far as workshop dates, we've been having the commission meeting on Monday, and the workshop on Tuesday. And I would rather be here for 2 days back to back than make 2 trips, because it's long ways. We kind of talked about it yesterday. Does that work? Do we do like a workshop on Monday afternoon and a commission meeting on Tuesday? I mean, y'all kind of talk to me, give me some choices, some feedback. Someone asked me yesterday, we have a workshop after every commission meeting, and I don't necessarily like to have one after every commission meeting, but I don't think we've had a workshop where we haven't furthered the agency. And I think as long as there's still a need for it, we need to have it. I think that's what's engaged us, is these workshops, to where we can kind of informally, even though it's from the meetings and even though it's being broadcast, we can ask the questions, we can call on staff, and I think they've been very beneficial. But it's the timing, commission meeting on Monday, workshop on Tuesday. Does that work? If it doesn't, send it with the email to Amber. We'll certainly,
It's only right now, it works for me.
Okay.
Commission meeting on Monday and workshop on Tuesday. There's a lot of times I'll drive up for 10 o'clock. I would have to come in a day early. We had a workshop the day before, it started at 9, just been totally transparent.
But what if you started the workshop at 1 on Monday, and you did like a 1 to 5 on Monday workshop, and then you started the commission meeting at 9 the next morning to get home?
That's true. If it's not broke, why fix it?
Okay,
I'm personally in agreement with the way the format is right now. I'm not saying I can't change, but I'm perfectly happy with what was set up right now.
And I just want to know, nothing we do is set in stone. Because I know, the broker and the brokers on here, we can take a day off. We have people that can show a house or drive it off or whatever. The public members, you pretty much leave your business at home. And so we want to make it as respectful for your time and financially as possible. So I'm just saying, just because we've always done like that doesn't mean we have to, but if it's not broke, let's not fix it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That suggestion is actually a very good one and very practical, because it would save us the hotel night stay for Sunday night. And so for me, I can travel Monday morning to get here at 1, and then stay over the night commission meeting, and then go back home, as opposed to coming Sunday evening or the 10 o'clock. Right, and so I think from a, does it matter? Yes, if it's a hotel rate, but I mean, it's just, I mean, think about it. No,
And we have the next 3 dates set. I mean, they're set, and we're really gonna try, if we set that, we're gonna try to keep it, okay? But we have the next 3 dates set, but we'll certainly take all this under advisement. All right, what have I missed? I did other initiatives. Another one popped in my head that, we talked about policy for attendees to committee meetings. And, should we set some formal policy that if you miss half the ESAC meetings or half the broker responsibility working groups, how we treat the alternates that we announce. So that's something that we need to, and that's kind of a low-hanging fruit. We take care of that with rules, but just stuff like that when it pops in, let's get it to Amber. Commissioner Russell.
My question, if you're a liaison to one of the subcommittees, would it be permissible to attend by Zoom?
Always.
The answer was
Yes. Yes, it is. So I think that's something that now that we're through this, well, we gotta get to the board meeting too. So I'm speaking for Steve over here, which I'm sure he's very excited for. We're going to start looking into what does virtual look like post-COVID waivers. And I say that because there are allowances under the Open Meetings Act that provide for it. From the liaison perspective, that's a little bit different, but it still incorporates the same questions of technology, which ahead of COVID, as I understand it, we couldn't do this, what we're doing right now. Is this perfect? But I think Steve and I are going to work towards what do those solutions look like in the future without the concept of COVID being the driving factor. And I think as a liaison, that makes perfect sense, right? We can offer you a call-in option at a minimum, but we've got Teams. It seems to work pretty well. That allows for you to be engaged, but not necessarily have to make that trip out for a couple hour meeting. So that's something that for sure Steve and I are going to be looking at as we move forward, but we can offer that.
What is the policy for some of these groups like broker responsibility or ESAC about being in person, like open meetings wise? Just going back to the budget things, if it's just a couple hour meeting, is it worth pulling all these people in?
Right, so yeah, so some of them have, right, reasons, let me just, hold on. I've got people talking. So some of our committees have a provision that allows them to meet via teleconference specifically, right? Broker responsibility working group is a little bit different. We talked about this yesterday. That's one that we're going to work on, establishing some more rules and criteria. And that's the thing that at the executive committee level, we're also working with in terms of appointments and things like that. So there are teleconference options available. We now have more of a virtual capability. So that's something that I think Steve and I need to look at. So ESAC, for example, the last ESAC meeting, we knew we probably only had about an hour's worth of material, right? And so people didn't travel in for that one, and they have that option. So without having my list in front of me of everyone and what their requirements are, it really is going to depend. But we do have more options available today than we did a year and a half ago. In terms of technology and what we have. So we will work to make these meetings move forward in a way that is compliant with open meetings law, that is beneficial to everyone who's participating in the public, but that also can offer that component. I think that is really important. I think it's important for people, some people want to just tune in that way, right? And I think that's something that we should be responsive to. So we'll look at how all of that works in Steve's world and in my world.
okay, Commissioner.
Yeah, I have a question, kind of a clarification question regarding topics such as continuing ed requirements for initial education requirements. What committee or department looks at or recommend, considers those recommendations.
So that one would be ESAC, Education Standards Advisory Committee. And if you have ideas there, bring them to us. And part of what we've done today and keep doing is determine what steps need to be taken for those ideas to be considered. And also at the end of each meeting, when we say, what agenda items do you want on there, you can also bring those things there, because then what we'll do is we'll take note of that, and then before it comes back as an agenda item to the commission, it'll go to ESAC. ESAC will bounce it around, do rule changes to be made, they're recommended there, and then they come back up to the commission. So all the committees do is they recommend changes for your consideration. And kind of the cycle of life, and it means much to Commissioner Lerner's chagrin, everything takes forever. Except what we can do without rule or law change. That will be tomorrow.
Okay. Anything else? On the next agenda item, is to adjourn. Okay, anything we need to cover, Executive Director, Town Council, Deputy Council? All right, thank y'all for attending, and thank you for attending online. The guests, thank you for attending. Staff, thank you for being here and answering questions. And we're out at, where it's 11:39 a.m.